For thousands of years, ancient temples were believed to be sacred places, places where humans searched for gods, places where kings prayed for victory, places where ordinary people claimed to witness miracles. That was the official story, but buried beneath ruined temples and forgotten civilizations, archaeologists found something else, something hidden inside the smoke itself. Black residue clung to ancient stone burners. Tiny chemical traces survived for thousands of years, and when scientists finally tested them, they discovered powerful hallucinogens, mind-altering substances. Drugs capable of distorting reality. Suddenly, ancient religion looked very different, because these chemicals were not found in one civilization. They appeared everywhere. Ancient Egypt, Greece, South America, Mesoamerica, the same pattern repeated again and again: smoke rituals, visions control, and one terrifying possibility slowly emerged. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss anything. What if ancient spiritual experiences were chemically engineered? The first clues appeared decades ago. At first, nobody paid attention. Small traces, strange descriptions in ancient writings, paintings showing smoke clouds surrounding kneeling worshippers, priests wearing animal masks, people collapsing during ceremonies. Historians dismissed it all. Religious symbolism, primitive superstition, nothing more. But then something changed. Modern forensic technology allowed researchers to examine microscopic residue trapped inside ancient burners. Suddenly, temples became chemical time capsules, and what they found shocked everyone. One Egyptian temple contained traces of blue lotus, a psychoactive plant linked to trance states. Another site revealed burned akasha compounds, substances capable of creating intense hallucinations. In South America, archaeologists discovered powerful psychoactive seeds hidden inside ceremonial chambers, inside ancient Greek ritual sites. Chemical markers hinted at ergot-like compounds capable of terrifying psychological effects. The discovery spread quickly through academic circles, but public discussion remained strangely quiet. Because the implications were deeply uncomfortable. If ancient priests intentionally altered human consciousness, then religion itself had to be re-examined. And that question has never been fully answered. Night falls over the Egyptian desert. The temple stands silent beneath the moonlight. Tall stone columns rise from the sand like shadows. Oil fires flicker against painted walls. The air smells sweet. Too sweet, a crowd gathers near the entrance, farmers, soldiers, children, even nobles, all waiting. None speaking. At the center of the chamber, priests prepare bronze burners filled with crushed plants and dark resin. Smoke rises slowly into the air, thick, heavy, the temple doors close behind the crowd. And suddenly, there is no fresh air. Ancient writings describe what happened next. People began trembling. Some cried uncontrollably. Others claimed they heard voices. Many collapsed to the floor. Some believed gods had entered the chamber. Others believed they had left their own bodies. For centuries, historians dismissed these accounts as exaggerated religious storytelling. But the architecture tells another story. Many temples were built with almost no ventilation. Smoke could not escape easily. It gathered slowly inside enclosed chambers. The longer ceremonies lasted, stronger the effects became. This is where the story gets strange. Some temples included hidden corridors connected directly to priest chambers. Fresh air flowed only where priests stood, not where worshippers gathered. Ancient murals show priests wearing elaborate bird-like masks with long beaks. For years, historians believed the masks were symbolic. Then researchers noticed something disturbing. The masks may have functioned as primitive filters, protection against prolonged exposure, because often stood inside these smoke-filled rooms for hours, sometimes entire nights. And the rituals were not random. Everything appeared carefully controlled. The timing, the chants, the darkness, the smoke density, even the positioning of worshippers. Ancient priests understood something terrifying. Human perception could be manipulated, fear could be amplified, visions could be manufactured, and belief could become absolute. In Greece, one ritual site attracted special attention from researchers: the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. For centuries, the Oracle of Delphi was considered one of history's greatest mysteries. Kings traveled across continents seeking her prophecies. Generals refused to begin wars without her approval. Entire nations feared her words. Ancient descriptions of the oracle were bizarre. Witnesses described her shaking violently before speaking, her eyes unfocused, her voice changing, sometimes screaming, sometimes whispering. Historians long assumed these stories were symbolic exaggerations. Then geologists discovered something unexpected beneath the temple itself. Cracks in the earth released toxic gases directly into the ritual chamber: ethylene hydrocarbons, mind-altering fumes. Low doses caused euphoria and trance states. Higher exposure caused confusion and hallucinations. Suddenly, the ancient accounts sounded disturbingly realistic, but researchers noticed another detail. The gas leaks alone may not explain everything. Residue found inside ritual burners suggested additional psychoactive substances were being burned deliberately, meaning the altered states were not accidental. They were enhanced, controlled, engineered. No one expected what came next. In South America, archaeologists uncovered ceremonial snuff tubes made from hollow bone. Inside them remained traces of powerful hallucinogens, substances linked to visions and extreme psychological experiences. Some compounds were so strong they could completely disconnect users from reality. Ancient artwork showed priests inhaling powders before rituals. Others depicted crowds, watching figures surrounded by glowing patterns and serpent-like shapes. The imagery looked strangely familiar to modern researchers studying psychedelic experiences, and the similarities extended across civilizations separated by oceans. The same symbols appeared repeatedly: serpents, bird-headed beings, floating lights, voices from above, entities descending from the sky. Why were isolated cultures experiencing similar visions? What were they really seeing? Or perhaps the better question was this: what were they inhaling? As investigations continued, archaeologists discovered something deeply unsettling. Many ceremonial substances were incredibly difficult to obtain: rare plants, dangerous fungi, resins transported across vast distances. Entire trade routes may have existed solely to supply temples with psychoactive materials. That changed everything, because gathering these substances required organization, planning. Meaning the rituals were not fringe practices. They were central to power itself. Kings relied on them, priests protected them, empires funded them, and ordinary people feared them. Ancient records from Mesoamerica describe rituals where participants entered dark chambers filled with smoke for hours. Some emerged screaming, others claimed to witness divine judgment. A few never spoke normally again, but then something changed. Researchers began examining ancient human remains found near temple sites. The bones revealed prolonged exposure to toxic compounds, particularly among priests: damaged lungs, chemical buildup, neurological deterioration. Some priests may have spent decades inhaling these substances, and yet they continued, generation after generation. Why? Because the visions gave them power. If priests controlled access to the gods, they controlled society itself. Fear became obedience. Visions became authority. Hallucinations became religion. And once people believed the gods truly spoke through temple smoke, questioning the priests became impossible. But one discovery terrified researchers more than anything else. Buried beneath an isolated desert temple, archaeologists uncovered sealed jars untouched for thousands of years. Inside remained preserved residue. When scientists analyzed the compounds, They found a mixture far stronger than expected. Multiple psychoactive substances combined together, carefully measured, intentionally prepared. Not primitive experimentation, chemistry, ancient chemistry. And suddenly, one horrifying idea emerged. What if ancient priests understood the human brain far better than anyone imagined? Because the smoke did more than create visions, it created dependency. Pilgrims returned again and again searching for divine experiences. Kings became addicted to prophecy. Entire civilizations revolved around ritual chambers filled with engineered hallucinations. This is where the story gets darker. Some ancient ceremonies involved children, others involved prisoners. Records describe people entering temples against their will during times of crisis. Droughts, wars, plagues, fear made populations easier to control, and the rituals intensified during those moments. Why? What were priests so desperate to maintain? Then, archaeologists uncovered another disturbing pattern. Many temple complexes were built directly above underground chambers with poor airflow. Perfect conditions for concentrated smoke exposure. Some chambers were so small that oxygen levels would drop dangerously low during rituals. Combined with psychoactive substances, the effects could become overwhelming: disorientation, panic, visions, loss of identity. To ancient worshippers, those experiences felt supernatural, but modern science tells another story. A story of manipulation, control, engineered belief, and possibly the oldest psychological system of mass influence in human history. But there was still one problem, one detail researchers could not explain. Because some ancient visions described impossible things, accurate star patterns unknown at the time, descriptions matching rare neurological experiences. Even encounters nearly identical across civilizations separated by thousands of miles. How could that happen? Were the drugs simply triggering the same human brain responses? Or did ancient priests uncover something deeper about consciousness itself? And that question has never been fully answered for centuries. Ancient temple rituals were treated as spiritual theater, smoke, chants, fear, faith, symbol explanations for primitive people. But the evidence told another story. Chemical residue hidden inside temple burners revealed deliberate psychoactive mixtures. Temple architecture trapped smoke inside enclosed chambers. Priests controlled airflow while worshippers inhaled concentrated fumes. And suddenly, ancient religion no longer looked symbolic. It looked engineered, but then something changed. Researchers studying ancient ceremonial sites noticed a pattern nobody expected. The strongest hallucinogenic traces were not found in ordinary temples. They appeared inside elite ritual chambers, he rooms, restricted areas, places only priests and rulers could enter. That detail changed everything because it suggested something terrifying. The smoke rituals were not only designed for the public, they were also used by the powerful themselves. In Peru, archaeologists uncovered a sealed ceremonial chamber beneath an ancient temple complex. The walls were blackened with thick soot, strange carved figures covered the stone, humanoid shapes with bird heads, serpent eyes, elongated limbs. At first, researchers assumed the room was used for sacrifices. Then they examined the residue. Powerful psychoactive compounds coated the walls, not traces. Layers, years of repeated exposure. The room had been saturated for generations. Ancient snuff tubes were scattered across the floor. Some still contained preserved particles. When tested, the compounds matched substances capable of causing vivid hallucinations and out-of-body experiences. But one detail disturbed researchers most. The room had no visible exits except one narrow doorway. Once ceremonies began, people inside could not easily escape. Ancient writings from nearby cultures described rituals involving death before rebirth. Participants entered sacred chambers. The smoke filled the air, then the visions began. Some believed they traveled beyond the human world. Others claimed they encountered gods waiting in darkness. Many returned transformed. Completely obedient to temple authority, this is where the story gets strange. Modern neuroscientists studying hallucinogenic compounds noticed similarities between ancient accounts and modern psychedelic experiences, encounters with glowing beings, feelings of leaving the body. Distorted time, serpent imagery, overwhelming spiritual certainty. The same experiences repeated across centuries, across continents, across civilizations that never contacted each other. And one question haunted researchers: were ancient priests simply exploiting human biology, or had they accidentally discovered a doorway into deeper psychological states? Because once the smoke entered the lungs, human brain changed rapidly, fear intensified, emotions amplified, suggestibility increased dramatically. And inside dark temple chambers illuminated only by firelight, those effects became overwhelming. Ancient priests may not have understood neuroscience, but they understood results. They understood that frightened people became easier to control, that visions created belief stronger than logic, and that people who believed they spoke to gods would obey almost anything. No one expected what came next. In Turkey, archaeologists uncovered an underground ritual complex dating back thousands of years. The chambers were unusually narrow, ventilation almost non-existent. Burn marks covered the ceilings, and inside hidden stone containers, researchers found preserved seeds from psychoactive plants, not food, not medicine, ritual substances, carefully stored, protected. Valued, some had been transported hundreds of miles, meaning entire trade systems existed to support temple ceremonies. That discovery revealed something massive. Ancient civilizations invested enormous resources into maintaining altered states of consciousness. This was not superstition, it was infrastructure, organized, systematic, and deeply important to political power. Kings often appeared beside priests during major ceremonies. Why? Because rulers needed divine legitimacy. A king supported by armies could still be challenged. But a king believed to speak through gods became untouchable. The smoke created that illusion. Inside crowded temples, worshippers watched rulers emerge from thick clouds while priests chanted around them. Some ceremonies lasted until participants collapsed from exhaustion. Others involved rhythmic drumming for hours. Combined with psychoactive smoke, the effects became devastating. Modern psychologists call this sensory manipulation. Ancient civilizations called it divine contact, and the line between those two ideas may be thinner than anyone imagined. But there was another layer to the mystery. Some ancient priests consumed far larger doses than ordinary participants. Why? Researchers studying skeletal remains discovered evidence of prolonged exposure to toxic substances among elite priest classes, damaged respiratory systems, neurological deterioration, even signs of psychological instability. Some priests may have spent decades inhaling psychoactive smoke almost daily, and yet the rituals continued generation after generation. That suggests something disturbing. The priests themselves may have believed the visions were real. Not manipulation, not performance, belief, goblisol belief. What they found shocked everyone. Ancient texts from multiple civilizations described nearly identical entities appearing during smoke rituals: tall beings, glowing eyes, voices without mouths, serpents descending from darkness, figures emerging from walls. At first, historians dismissed these similarities as coincidence. Then neuroscientists studying modern psychedelic experience noticed the same patterns appearing today. Modern users reported nearly identical visions, the same entities, the same overwhelming sense of contact with something beyond reality. And suddenly, ancient temple rituals no longer seemed primitive. They seemed terrifyingly sophisticated, because ancient priests may have discovered methods capable of reliably triggering specific psychological experiences. Methods repeated so often they became religion itself. This is where the story becomes darker. Not everyone entered temples willingly. Ancient records describe prisoners forced into ceremonies, children participating in initiation rituals, entire communities gathering during times of famine or plague. Fear created desperation, desperation created obedience, and the smoke reinforced both. Why would civilizations rely so heavily on these rituals? Because they worked. A frightened population seeking answers became easier to guide. People experiencing terrifying visions became more dependent on priests for protection. And rulers benefited from that fear. Religion and power merged together inside smoke-filled chambers. But then something changed. Researchers examining hidden inscriptions beneath one temple discovered warnings carved directly into stone, not prayers, warnings. Translated fragments described voices inside the smoke. Others warned against remaining too long within the breath of the gods. One inscription described priests becoming lost inside visions. They could no longer escape. That detail frightened researchers because it suggested ancient civilizations understood the dangers, yet continued anyway. Why? Perhaps because once a system controls an empire, stopping becomes impossible. Then came one final discovery. Buried beneath a collapsed temple in Mexico, archaeologists uncovered preserved ceremonial masks. Inside the masks remained residue from repeated smoke exposure, but the masks were designed strangely. Primitive filter chambers lined the interior. Protection for the wearer, meaning priests may have shielded themselves while exposing worshippers to far higher concentrations. That changed everything. The rituals were not equal experiences. They were controlled experiences, engineered from above, and suddenly, ancient temples looked less like spiritual centers and more like psychological machines, machines designed to manufacture awe, fear, submission, belief. But there was still one mystery nobody could explain. Some visions experienced during these rituals contained accurate astronomical information unknown at the time. Star alignments, celestial movements, mathematical patterns later confirmed by modern science. How? How could altered states produce knowledge seemingly impossible for ancient civilizations? Some researchers believe the answer is simple coincidence, others disagree because the human brain remains deeply misunderstood. Hallucinogens do not create visions randomly. They alter perception in ways science still struggles to fully explain. Ancient priests may have accidentally discovered hidden functions of consciousness itself. Or perhaps they discovered something far more dangerous, the ability to shape reality through belief. And that possibility still terrifies researchers today. Because modern society is not immune to manipulation. Technology changed, empires changed, but human psychology did not. Fear still controls people, symbols still influence crowds. Authority still depends on belief. The methods evolved, the mechanism remained. And somewhere beneath ruined temples buried by sand and time, black residue still clings to ancient stone. Silent evidence of rituals that changed human history. The priests disappeared, the empires collapsed, the temples crumbled, but the smoke remains waiting inside the darkness, waiting for someone to breathe it again, and that question has never been fully answered.